Well, welcome. This is a special Two Angry Men with an upgrade in the middle, Lauren Conlin from LA Magazine. Harvey and I, by the way, I want you to know that pre-production, we just switched. So since we're wearing the same shirt, we're on either side of Lauren.
Yeah, we kind of are actually.
And Harvey's in the dark,
Yes,
so
exactly.
there's that. But
And there's two subjects today that I wanted to talk about. The first one is the Lively Baldoni settlement this week, where we have both sides taking kind of victory laps, which I have a lot of opinions on this, but Harvey, you better than anybody have been around Hollywood longer than time itself. What's your take on both of these sides declaring victory?
Blake Lively lost, period. Blake Lively lost this case. She wanted more than $100 million, more than $150 million, and she ended up getting nothing. She settled for no money. There was no apology. It was, I acknowledge that we will take your issues seriously. There's no, but I'm sorry for what I did. There is no exchange of money. And that's what civil lawsuits are about. Civil lawsuits are about money. And that's it. Now you could say, well, they're also about abdication and or rather just, somebody kind of acknowledging that, you did me dirty. He never said he did her dirty in the settlement. So I don't know what she won. The only thing that is weird to me is there is this outstanding issue where she's going after him for lawyers' fees because of this peculiar California law that says that if somebody files a sexual harassment lawsuit and then the person sued turns around and files a defamation lawsuit and the defamation lawsuit is thrown out, the person who filed the sexual harassment lawsuit gets attorney's fees. Well, it's true that Justin Baldoni's defamation lawsuit got thrown out, but her sexual harassment lawsuit got thrown out too. So I'm not sure how this law even works where she would get attorney's fees for a lawsuit that was thrown out. So bottom line is right now she got zero. So I'm not taking sides here. I'm just, as an observer, I don't see how you can look at this as anything but a loss for Blake Lively.
Mark, I texted you this. I said, how does this work? And I was also curious about the laws because it's only California law. And I believe he filed this directly in the Southern District. So I had a lot of questions about that.
So it's so funny that Harvey hit exactly what I wanted to talk about. And Harvey, we did not discuss this beforehand. In fact, we had a lot of discussions today, and it did not even remotely traverse this area. And Lauren, you're right. It's a California law. It was enacted, I think, passed the legislature in 23, enacted January 1st of 2024. No real test of it so far in the little over 2 years since. Going to be up to the Southern District Judge, Judge Lyman. Ironically, the son of one of the kind of legendary First Amendment lawyers that ever lived, Arthur Lyman, who was kind of I never really worked with him, but God, when I was a young lawyer, that was one of the go-to guys along with Edward Bennett Williams. He's supposed to now decide this peculiar code section, which, by the way, ironically, they also said there's no appeal. Part of the walkaway, if you will, is
they're going to accept what the judge says.
Correct. They've got to take it no matter what.
It was my analysis of this thing, right?
Yeah, oh, yes, exactly right. That it's basically a first cousin, if you will. It's in the same family as the anti-SLAPP. So in an anti-SLAPP, generally, if you get into an area that is arguably a matter of public concern, and then you can always slap somebody's lawsuit. And that's exactly what they're trying to do here. But the problem, the wrinkle is you nailed it exactly. The original harassment, which triggers this law, was dismissed. And if you're Blake Lively's team or lawyer, I'm saying to myself, well, I guess I could go declare victory, but this has been pending since September 25. The reason I think it's been pending is because the judge was waiting to see what happened with the sexual harassment cases or causes of action. They've now been dismissed. So how in the world, although this is one of the greatest positions for a judge to be in. I've been given carte blanche to decide a case of first impression, and there's no appeal. So it's going to be fascinating to wait for, but I'm with you. I don't know how you ever declare victory in a case like this, where they, on the eve of trial, they basically waved the white flag. And
he didn't apologize.
At all.
He didn't apologize in the settlement. That we take seriously what she says.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's not an apology.
No.
But they went over this language for 20 hours, and that's what they came up with. And she was, look, here's the reality. And I was saying this all along, and I'm not doing it. I don't like doing I told you so because I'm wrong a lot. But in this one, I never saw this going to trial because it would have ruined both of them. They would have been grilled like cheeseburgers in cross-examination.
Why did it take this long, though? I feel like they just had this whole
They
settlement.
were waiting for the other person to blink.
Okay, then my other question is, and again, forgive me if this sounds dumb, but how do you, as Blake Lively, as her attorneys, and Harvey, you said this, you're asking for hundreds of millions of dollars, then it's $100 million, then you walk away with nothing, and you say, we won, we succeeded. I don't understand that. Like, do they think we're all dumb?
They won this like we're winning the Iran war.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because you say it doesn't make it so.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
The cynic in me says Lively had, I think, upwards of 5 law firms that I was counting on the docket. I've seen reporting of $60 million all in for both sides. It would shock me if, based on the firms that were involved, that Lively did not spend $30 million on
which I think you're right, and it's just crazy. It's one of those things where it just takes on a life of its own. And for people who would step back and look at it, you would say this is crazy, but they didn't, and here we are. So I have no idea how the judge is going to rule on this, and the judge also has a lot of discretion about how much money, even if she's entitled to lawyers' fees, if the judge feels that, how much is she entitled to? All of it? Everything that she did? I don't think so. I think they're going to start separating it. And look, if she gets anything, if you get attorney's fees, but you get no compensatory damages, no punitive damages, you lost your case. I mean, that's simple.
And the other, there's always, and this is what's so kind of frustrating, if you will, there are insurance companies undoubtedly that are involved. There are insurance companies who have probably paid money under a reservation of rights, which means they say, we're going to defend you because it's our duty to defend you, especially if it's a California insured. And then there's going to be, because of the reservation of rights and because this was settled, if the reports are accurate, at a private mediation right on the over the weekend, so to speak, that the insurance companies probably also, part of the settlement agreement is going to be they've carved out who owes what and who has to pay what and who indemnifies who. Even if there was an attorney's fees award, I'm not so sure that's ever going to come out of Justin Baldoni's pocket. I think that would be the insurance companies arm wrestling and fighting over all of those things. And then I'll give you one other thing, and I mentioned this to Lauren last week. If you read the order where 10 of the 13 counts, causes of action got thrown out, this judge spared no words or criticism of the law firms for Blake Lively. If you read the order, it's almost as if he's saying, you want to go after somebody for damages, go after your lawyers for screwing this up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that well could be what he was telegraphing. But I got to say, when you look at this from start to finish, I just don't know what motivated all of it, because if you kind of play it out and realize that there are going to be there are going to be interrogatories, and you're going to have to submit documents, and Taylor Swift's going to get involved, and your husband's going to get involved in this too, and he's not going to look good, and your relationship with Taylor's not going to look good, and if your relationship with Taylor blows up, you become an enemy to a lot of people because of Taylor Swift's popularity, and on and on and on and on. And it just, this lawsuit never made sense to me from the beginning. What motivated it? I mean, look, she may have legitimate grievances, but a lawsuit's not always the way to air those grievances. And I just think that from the beginning, this thing was a disaster for her.
I remember exactly how this all played out. I mean, it was one thing after another where she didn't take the central theme of domestic violence seriously in certain interviews. And then she was kind of, she was harassed for that online. And then a video circulated of her being rude to that Swedish reporter saying, "Oh, I like your little bump." It wasn't a good look. She felt the need to come out and explain this. And in my opinion, I've said this before, I would have forgotten all about that bad publicity. Honestly, I would have forgotten in 2 months when the media cycle moved on. But no, someone in her camp was advising her to do this. And I want to know who that person was, because I think this is career ruining, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've covered celebrities long enough to know that you can't look at something and kind of take a snapshot of the moment in time and define them for the rest of their lives. I mean, Michael Vick would never play football again, you would think, but he did. And, Mel Gibson would never do another movie, but he did.
You think someone's going to hire her, Harvey, after she accused, you think something
happens give it like 3 or 4 years. People have a very, very short attention span. This is not murder. It's a lawsuit that got messed up. And, people are going to forget this in 3 years. I've seen it.
So before we move on to one other subject I want to discuss, I want you to rank 3 lawsuits, and they actually were lawsuits: Barbra Streisand, Amber Heard, Blake Lively. Now, the Barbra Streisand had to do with her house, and I believe on the coast, and that became kind of in the nomenclature the Streisand effect.
Right.
And Amber Heard, where I think kind of very similar, this whole thing echoes, and now Blake Lively. Where do you rank them in terms of missteps? 1, 2, or 3?
They're different. I mean, Amber Heard was a fiasco for her. So in many ways, she's number 1. Okay. And the Barbra Streisand case was a privacy case, and became a really important ruling. But I don't think that impacted her career at all. And also, she hadn't really done much around the time that lawsuit was filed. This one kind of falls in the middle. But again, if you ask somebody in a year, what was the Lively case about, they're not going to remember. So, I mean, we are like an Etch-a-Sketch in our society, and you have something front and center, and it's huge, and then all of a sudden it goes away and something else comes on, and it just becomes a memory. Nobody got killed. There's no video that's a smoking gun that you can't get over. So, I think, look, if she kind of goes away for a year, 2 years, to the extent she wants to
Met
work
Gala that night, Harvey, the Met Gala that night. I don't think she's going away. And also, Amber Heard moved out of the country and hasn't worked since. Just saying. Right. I mean,
so Amber Heard could get a job today. Amber Heard could get a job today. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I think that's, and Barbra
could work if she wanted.
Has been returned to iconic. Not that she necessarily ever left. However, the Streisand effect is, she will forever be remembered for that. I will tell
Be
you.
remembered for Funny Girl, Mark. She's not going to be remembered for a lawsuit. Nobody thinks of that when they think of
Only
Barbra
Geragos.
Streisand.
Only I do.
I
do.
know.
Nobody else does. You're the only
say-
one.
I'm going to say Blake Lively is closer to Michael Richards, who I
Oh
think.
my God, no. Oh my God, no.
I think she's closer to Michael Richards
She is
than
not.
she is to Barbara Streisand.
Mark, Michael Richards was screaming racial epithets over and over at the comedy.
And you'll admit that he never came back from that.
And he's one of the few people that we've covered in 20 years who really hadn't. But I can give you a list of people that you would have written off, you know, especially during cancel culture era, and they're all back.
Well,
So-
I'll give you this. I do, in my day job, always advise clients, just duck down, hunker down for, 78, 90, whatever, 100 hours is probably the rule. Somebody else is going to do something crazier or stupider than you, and it'll all pass if you don't lean into it. So
I liked her movies. I really enjoyed her movies. Call Me Simple, whatever. But it is kind of a bummer the way this whole thing went down, because I can't imagine it was easy for anyone involved, and that's just my empathy for everybody. But anyway,
see, what I think is, and I think this happens a lot. She was really angry, and she sat down with a lawyer, and the lawyer oversold her on what could happen. And I think that's what happened. Blake Lively's not a lawyer. She doesn't know the process of how all of this stuff works. And somebody painted a picture that looked like this was going to be a smooth landing, and it wasn't. And I think that's where this whole thing started.
I don't disagree with that. In fact, I'm embroiled in a matter right now, and it's settled, or at least tentatively settled. And I, in real time, told opposing counsel, big firm opposing counsel, one of the top 5, that this was a suicide mission for their client. They didn't need to do this, and it was kind of mutually assured destruction. They did it anyway because they deferred to the client. I mean, that's a lot of times when you find these things, and sometimes the lawyers get blamed. It's really the client for just insisting on this kind of scorched earth, and that could be the case here. So you might be right. Okay, segue, because one of the things that I know Harvey is interested in, because I certainly am, is the LA mayoral election. Harvey, you want to do a little spiel on that, because you've been all over this election.
Well, I mean, my upset about this has to do with my life. That I'm not only a born and raised Los Angelino, but I'm second generation. My dad was born and raised in LA. And so this is my life. And I have seen this city just fall apart, over the last, 8, 9 years, but especially the last 4 years. That, the homeless problem is out of control in this city. I've been chased by people, a guy with a hammer, walking out of my gym. He chased me with a hammer. I had a mentally ill woman, a homeless woman, take a boulder and trash my car. And I caught her doing it. And I realized there is nothing I can do. What am I going to do? Get her arrested? I mean, what is that going to do? Am I going to sue her? So I literally looked at my car, watched her walk away, and said, I live in Los Angeles. And, the fires have been an absolute outrage in this city. This didn't have to happen. We had 100 fire trucks that were out of service. The water pressure was messed up, and people lost their homes as a result of bad leadership. And then all of a sudden, people are throwing other people under the bus for no reason. This city operated in an appalling way during the fires. And by the way, it's not over. The insurance companies are screwing people over left and right. I've got a friend, his name is Dan Brunn. He's an amazing architect. He put together a plan with 100 architects to offer their services free of charge to rebuild Altadena and Pacific Palisades. And they had a whole plan. I actually contacted Gavin Newsom, and Newsom.
I remember when you did that. I remember.
And Newsom put his people in touch with Dan, and they were all in, and they brought it down to the city, which they had to do, and it died a slow death in the city of Los Angeles. So this city is not working. And now the question is, what do you do? And, you know, I'm so angry. I am so angry at Rick Caruso for not running for mayor.
God,
He would have been a great mayor. And he knows administratively how to run a huge organization. Karen Bass never did. The city councilwoman who's running has never run a big organization, and neither is Spencer Pratt. And so then what are you choosing here? And that's the question, because honestly, what are you choosing? Are you going to reelect a mayor who on her watch, this has all happened to Los Angeles? So what are you going to do? This is not an ideal situation.
And you, as somebody, you know, you said you were born and raised here. And Lauren, you'll excuse the two angry old men because we're both have connected. I was born in downtown LA. I went to law school in downtown LA. I've spent my entire legal career in downtown LA. I'm centered right at the engine company fire station, which is, I've been there for 20 years. And Harvey couldn't be more right. Is something started to happen 8 years ago, 9 years ago. The COVID came along and exacerbated it. And we're living in an outdoor insane asylum in Los Angeles. Hollywood has been decimated, to Harvey's point. The idea of all of this the homeless encampment situation. I've got a client, Rebecca Corey, who's been fighting with the dogs down in Skid Row. They're using the dogs to test fentanyl or drugs for fentanyl on Skid Row. Rebecca's been screaming from the light. Yeah, she's got film of her at the city council meetings, and they're just kind of, they don't care. They don't care about any of it. The homeless kind of industrial complex and the corruption surrounding that has frustrated no less than a federal judge down in Santa Ana, where he's hauling the city down there because none of the officials will do what he's saying to do. So it's an incredibly frustrating situation. But to Spencer Pratt's credit, he has done something with the political ads. I don't know if you've got them, Lauren, but there are two in particular, and he's coming off of the debate where he really, I thought, kind of shone, and
Spencer won the debate.
Yeah. Oh, he won it clearly. Here you
Find
go.
this one.
Let's see.
This is where Mayor Bass lives. You notice something? Or here, where Nicky Raman's $3 million mansion sits. They don't have to live in the mess they've created where you live. This is where I live. They let my home burn down. I know what the consequences of failed leadership are. That's why I'm running for mayor, for my sons and the rest of us Angelinos that want to stop these corrupt politicians from destroying our city. We are going to get the golden age of Los Angeles back.
Wow.
Yeah, he's tapped into something. I also will give a shout out to Adam Carolla, because Adam said, and Adam was I was evacuated in the fire. Adam in Malibu was surrounded by that mess. And he said at the time, he made the prediction at the time. He said, wait until you and all your friends have to deal with the city and getting the permits and trying to navigate this. And then I said, trust me, I know what's going to happen with the insurance companies. I can see this coming. And sure enough, it's been worse than I ever expected. And there is a vein of people who never in a million years would have tilted towards Spencer Pratt or anybody who was kind of proudly embracing what his message, but they're open to it now. It's coming attraction. There's Batman ad.
Go on, I'm sorry.
Go on.
He's behind in the polls, right? From what I've seen, he's raised more money, but he's not ahead.
That's right. He's
right.
he's behind.
So what? I want to ask you guys though, you Harvey, you're shaking your head. I kind of see where you are right now, sort of. But I mean, there's something to be said about a kid that's really hungry, that really wants to get it done and really wants change.
I'll tell you one thing about Spencer Pratt, that I am so alarmed because, look, we have had our fill with reality stars going into politics. And the reality is that they have name recognition and people, it's good enough for them and they vote for them. And that is alarming to me. Spencer Pratt has had no administrative experience. You have to run the Department of Transportation. You have to run the Department of Building and Safety, which should be issuing more permits than they are. You have to run departments that employ thousands and thousands and thousands of city workers. And it is I was a local reporter in LA, TV reporter for 15 years. I know the way the city works and doesn't work, because I've seen everything. And it is a complicated job, even for somebody really skilled. Spencer Pratt does not have that experience, nor does Karen Bass, or really anybody else running. The one thing about Spencer that I will say is that I was texting him the other day, and I was expressing this to him, that I'm really alarmed that you don't have this kind of experience. And he said, I know. And he said, I'm going to have smart people surround me. And I thought, well, I've heard that a million times before. But then he gave me two names. If these two people are legit, that they really have signed on if he wins, I know these two people. And you guys know them too. They're both very accomplished people in the city of Los Angeles who have had a lot to do with city government. And, they stand out as really competent and capable. So if those two people are on board, and that's the level at which he's playing, there's some hope there.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, and I'm not going to hammer you to tell me who the two are.
No, I promised I wouldn't. But again, where are we? I'm so pissed off at Rick Caruso, because he would have been so good. He would have been.
Remember what happened. Remember, for those in the weeds, remember what happened with Rick Caruso. Rick Caruso was either leading or neck and neck with Karen Bass last time. And then what happened, there was that recording that came out at the Fed that had supposedly was completely or dropped, if you will, right on the eve as an October surprise before the election. And that propelled Karen Bass into office. And, there are those who say it was a conspiracy at the time. There are those who say, yeah, they knew exactly what they were doing. They were going to put Karen Bass into office and take out Rick Caruso. And he was the ultimate victim of that. Lauren, I wanted to end with the Batman commercial.
I'll find it. I wanted to talk about aliens. Mark's not as into aliens as I am. So.
Well, I'm totally, Lauren, I am so into it.
Can we talk about that next time? Because
I am so into it. And Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, who have really kind of engineered this this movement. There is something we're going to find out that's going to really shock humanity, I think. But can I just say one other thing about this election?
Yes.
Please.
When I was a senior in high school, when Robert Kennedy ran for president, and I got a phone in my bedroom, and I became the head of students for Kennedy. And I was at the Ambassador on June 4th, 1968, when he was assassinated. And, I was inspired by this guy, and really inspired to work for him, to actually go out and work for him. And I felt something about our country, about politics, about democracy. And there was a feeling I had that was intense. And I've never had that feeling since. And it's really sad. And not only have I not had this feeling since, but now look at what politics has become.
Mhm.
And it is so sad to see that trajectory in my lifetime, because I know what inspiration is. And, I remember Martin Luther King and how he inspired people. What happened? What happened?
That gave me chills. That made me sad. It really did make me sad, because you are talking about the era of politics when the Kennedys were royalty, and we're not there anymore. Even I don't want to go too deep in the Kennedy family, but we're dealing with a lot. But Mark, I do have good news for you. I do have the Batman ad that I can pull up as
This is not, by the way, this is not a Spencer ad. This was a film director.
Yes, sorry. So this is not Spencer. Whatever. Mark.
Right. Thank you.
Please, I'm begging you. There's homeless drug addicts in front of the schools. My children aren't safe.
Look, if you were a transgender migrant, I could get you a free pussy.
Let's move the drug addicts closer.
Bass already solved crime. I endorse her.
Next!
Please, I just want to rebuild my home. It's been over a year.
Mom, look!
This is a machine. If we want to burn this town to the ground, throw that!
I feel so close.
You can do it, Spencer!
Is this pretty much how it ends?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
It's brilliant. It's
I had not seen that. I just watched that in real time. That is crazy. He has so much support that people are making these type of videos on his behalf. That's nuts.
And if we had the clips of the debate, Harvey's right. He won the debate going away.
He won the debate. We will see. LA is in for more of a rough ride. I mean, it just is. And God, it's sad. Because when this city was great, Lauren, I think you're too young. I know you're too young. But Mark, the '84 Olympics in this town,
Unbelievable. I'm telling you, as recently as 2015 I thought, specifically downtown LA, I can tell the story after story was just, you could see it on a trajectory.
Yeah.
I mean,
with the Disney Center and just, all of a sudden people are moving there.
I had at least 8 single women who had moved downtown over Hollywood, over the West Side, because they were so excited about the vibe and the culture that was downtown LA. And now they wouldn't be caught dead after 6 o'clock downtown. In fact, they probably would be caught dead.
You want one debate clip that I just pulled? Yeah, one. Okay, let's
we'll end on that. How's that?
Yeah, hold on. Let me just grab all right. I guess this is when he was called a MAGA Republican.
Correct.
Okay, yes.
I'm not sure how to respond to that vision of Los Angeles. This is a MAGA Republican's idea of what Los Angeles looks like. This is really not this. I'm not sure how to respond to that vision of
clip. Sorry that he.
That's pretty good, though.
No, that was a moment. Lauren,
that was a moment.
That was the moment. He didn't respond any other way to that.
No, just the mockery.
Yeah.
Just the okay.
And
Well, that was.
It was so genuine. It was not. It was. You couldn't rehearse that. That was just. I've been there in court, and I've had to restrain myself. So
there was one the other day where it was like Spencer on the hills, and it was like, look, Spencer's always been into geopolitics. He was like comparing like, they're never going to get along. They're going to be like Israel and Iran. And they're like, man, he always knew. And I was like, what is going on? But it was, entertaining. And I wish him well. I'm happy for him and Heidi and their family. I mean,
Heidi won't come back to LA. She's so traumatized. She's in Carpinteria until they get their house rebuilt. And I just one other thing, like, what we were talking about, you can't get permits to rebuild your house. I mean, it's so difficult for some of these people. And what I'm being told is there are insurance companies that are saying, we're not going to pay you any money until you get architectural plans.
Right.
And architectural plans can easily cost $10,000. And a lot of these people don't have $10,000. They're living hand to mouth. They still may have a mortgage and they have to find a place to live. So they're going under. And here, my friend Dan Brunn and 100 other architects were willing to donate their services, and the damn thing died in the city. It's outrageous what's going on here. I'm sorry for being upset, but I'm just upset.
I'd be the same way. Next time though, aliens, okay?
Okay, I'm down with that.
Okay.
Thanks, you two. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
You guys.